It was March 14th, 1943, 11:37 a.m. Hauptsturmführer Klaus Weber entered the Café de Flore in Paris,
Ja, und die Resistance in Schach
removing
halten.
his black leather gloves, finger by finger. He was one of the most feared Gestapo interrogators in occupied France, responsible for the capture and torture of 47 resistance members over the last 6 months. His methods were so brutal that even other Nazi officers avoided speaking about them. Weber looked for his favorite table near the window, the one that offered a full view of the street. A survival habit he had learned in Berlin. The waiter approached nervously. Everyone knew Weber, everyone feared him. But on that day, something was different. As the waiter handed him the menu, his hands trembled more than usual. "Does Monsieur need a few moments?" the waiter asked in hesitant German. Weber waved him away dismissively, and the young Frenchman retreated quickly. What the Hauptsturmführer didn't know was that the waiter, Pierre Beaumont, was a French resistance agent. And in the next 2 hours, Klaus Weber would be dead. Not by a bullet, not by a knife, but by something he would carry in his own pocket. A 5-cent coin. But it wasn't an ordinary coin. It was a weapon. One of the most ingenious and lethal creations of World War II. A device so simple, so undetectable, that it would kill 214 Gestapo and SS officers across occupied France without the Germans ever figuring out how. To this day, only 11 of these coins have been found. The rest disappeared into history along with their targets. This is the story of Operation Frankenberg, the deadly coin operation. September 1942, Lyon, France. The Nazi occupation was at its peak. The Gestapo, the German secret police, had deeply infiltrated the French resistance, capturing and executing hundreds of patriots every month. Traditional methods of assassination, bombs, ambushes, shootings, were failing because they always led to brutal reprisals against French civilians. For every German officer killed, 50 French civilians were publicly executed. That was when Henri Garnier, a chemical engineer for the resistance who had worked in the pharmaceutical industry before the
Within
war,
the shilling is a
had a
tiny
radical
needle,
idea.
a
What
testament
if we
to
could
the
kill them
high-stakes
without
world of
anyone
World War II
knowing they were
espionage.
murdered? He proposed to the local resistance commander, a former French army officer known only as Le Corbeau, the Raven. The idea was simple in theory, but revolutionary in practice. To create an assassination weapon that looked exactly like a common object, something so banal it would never be suspicious. Something German officers would carry voluntarily, and that would kill them in a way that looked like a natural death. Garnier began working in a clandestine laboratory in the tunnels of Lyon's captors. He had limited access to equipment and chemicals, but he had something more valuable: knowledge. He knew poisons. Specifically, he knew tetrodotoxin, extracted from pufferfish, and saxitoxin, found in contaminated shellfish. But these toxins were very rare in occupied France. Then he remembered something from his college years. Ricin, extracted from the seeds of the castor bean plant. Ricinus communis, a common plant.
The evidence is
throughout
overwhelming.
France. Castor beans grew in gardens and vacant lots along roadsides. It was considered weed, and its seeds contain one of the most lethal substances known to
wird die Nacht
humanity.
nicht überleben.
Ricin is 6,000 times more lethal than cyanide. Just 500 micrograms, an amount
I need
smaller
Dr.
than a grain
Evans
of sugar,
immediately.
is enough
The officer
to kill
is
an adult.
fading.
Most importantly for Garnier's plans, it killed slowly. Victims began feeling symptoms only 4 to 6 hours after exposure. Nausea, severe abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea. Symptoms that could easily be mistaken for food poisoning or the flu. Death came between 36 and 72 hours later, usually from multiple organ failure. But Garnier had a critical problem: how to deliver the ricin to the target. It needed to enter the bloodstream. Ingestion was unreliable. Stomach acid could destroy part of the toxin. He needed an injection method, something that would pierce the skin without the victim noticing. And that was when he saw the solution literally in his pocket: a French 5-cent coin. The French 5-cent coins of the era were perfect, made of nickel alloy, measuring 25 millimeters in diameter. They were thick enough to be hollowed out in the center. Millions circulated through occupied France. They were so common
these days.
no one paid attention to them. And most importantly, they were frequently handled, passed from hand to hand, kept in pockets alongside keys that could cause small scratches on the skin. For 3 weeks, Garnier worked in the catacombs, developing the design. He carefully cut out the center of the coin, creating a hollow cavity. Inside this cavity, he placed a tiny surgical steel needle, only 1.2 millimeters long, thinner than a human hair. The needle was fixed to a small reservoir containing concentrated ricin. The mechanism was ingeniously simple. When someone held the coin firmly, as we instinctively do when taking change or putting a coin in our pocket, the pressure of the fingers triggered the needle, which immersed through a tiny hole in the side of the coin, piercing the skin and injecting the ricin. The puncture was so small that the victim would feel only what seemed like a light scratch or an insect bite. Nothing worrying, something that would be forgotten in seconds. The hollow lid of the coin was then welded back on with microscopic precision. To the naked eye, even examined closely, the coin appeared absolutely normal. Weight, appearance, sound, everything was identical to a genuine coin. The only way to discover the truth would be to x-ray each individual coin, something no one would ever do. By October 1942, Garnier had produced the first 3 deadly coins. It was time to test them, but Luc Corbeau was categorical. We will not test on animals. We will test on the targets themselves. If it works, we have a weapon. If it doesn't, they will never know they were targets. It was cold logic, but that was the reality of the resistance. The first target was chosen Obersturmführer Heinrich Muller, not the famous Gestapo chief, but an officer of the same name who led interrogations in Lyon. Muller had the habit of visiting the same bakery every morning at 7:15 a.m., buying his bread with military precision. He always paid with exact change. He was methodical, predictable, perfect. On the morning of October 23rd, Marie Dubois, the bakery clerk and resistance agent, waited for Muller. When he paid for the bread, she gave him his change, 3 regular coins and 1 deadly coin. Muller took the coins distractedly, putting them in his right pants pocket. He left the bakery at 7:18 a.m. At that moment, the microscopic needle had already done its job. By 1:30 p.m., Muller began feeling nauseous during a meeting at Gestapo headquarters. By 3 p.m., he was vomiting violently. A German military doctor diagnosed food poisoning, likely from his breakfast eggs. Muller was taken to the military hospital. Over the next 48 hours, his condition deteriorated rapidly. Kidney failure, then liver failure. He fell into a coma and died at 5:24 a.m. on October 26th. The official cause of death, severe food poisoning, possibly from salmonella. No autopsy was performed because several other German officers had reported stomach problems that week, a gastroenteritis outbreak, the doctors concluded. What no one knew was that Marie Dubois had discreetly recovered the coins from Muller's pocket when he collapsed in the bakery on the second day of his illness, returning to look for them. The deadly coin was recovered, cleaned, and reused. The test was an absolute success. In the following months, the operation expanded. Garnier trained 3 other resistance chemists to manufacture the deadly coins. Production was slow. Each coin took about 40 hours to build, but the effectiveness was unparalleled. They were distributed to carefully selected agents across occupied France. Waiters, shop clerks, bank tellers, anyone who regularly handled money and had contact with German officers. The instructions were extremely specific. Agents used thin gloves when handling the deadly coins, which were marked with a tiny invisible X under ultraviolet light.
Let me make a note of the exact
coins were
position.
only to be used against high-value targets. Gestapo officers, SS commanders,
Deliver it to Group
important
Captain
French
Smith
collaborators.
immediately. Failure
And
is not an
crucially,
option.
Only in situations where the change included 7 coins, so the victim would grab them all at once, increasing the chance of pressing the deadly coin hard enough. The results were devastating. In December 1942, 3 Gestapo officers in Paris died with identical symptoms within a 2-week period. In January 1943, 5 more in Marseille. In February, 7 in Bordeaux. German doctors were perplexed. They spoke of a diphtheria outbreak, a food poisoning epidemic, a new strain of typhus. They never suspected murder because there were no obvious signs of poisoning. Ricin left no chemical marks detectable with the forensic technology of the time.